project manager tech job interview, the super toxic rejection email, and how I handled it. Hello, I'm Daisy Doll. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. Looking for a job is not an easy thing to do. I try to be as prepared as possible because I want to make the best first impression and I want to secure that job. I interviewed for a job to be a project manager at a digital agency. A recruiter reached out to me after I had applied for this job. It was a recruiter that worked directly in the company, not an outside recruiter. So I get scheduled to interview with, I believe it was the director of the department at the time. I show up to the interview. This is a Zoom interview. His name was Brad. We did our introductions. He only asked me 2 or 3 questions. You know, the general like, oh, tell me about yourself, your background. But I noticed earlier on that he wasn't really being specific. He wasn't really engaging to like discover like, oh, what are my experiences and how does it apply to this job? How does it apply to this position that he's trying to fill? I did not pick up on that eagerness to engage with me and actually, you know, figure out if I'm a good fit or not. He just sat there and watched me. Like, I kid you not. I remember thinking to myself, you know, when is he gonna ask me more questions? I don't just wanna start spitballing, you know, random things just based off of what I've seen on the job description. I want him to ask me specific questions so that I could speak to specific projects or specific responsibilities. I just felt as though Brad was not really interested. I had already been told by the recruiter that there was somewhat of a rush in trying to fill this position. So when I get on this interview with Brad, I'm essentially like, okay, it looks like they need someone quickly. I understand what's needed. Let's get into it. He was not giving me any energy. It's almost like he expected me to BS my way through the conversation and just throw things at him, and then whatever sticks, he'll use that to drive the conversation. That made me uneasy, but I kept telling myself, you know, they're trying to fill this role really quickly. Maybe that's why it is this way. Maybe that's why this is how he is interviewing me. The interview ends earlier than I would typically end an interview. Usually, either my interviews end right on time or it goes a little bit over, and that's when you know you've done good. But if your interview ends 15 minutes early, I don't think that's a good sign. I just said to myself, okay, so this interview ended early and he didn't ask me anything of relevance. So what do I do? A few days go by, I hadn't heard anything. I sent a follow-up email to the recruiter. The recruiter works in the same company that would be hiring me, right? So I reached out to this recruiter and I said, is the position filled? Is there an update? You know, you can't just interview someone and then not give them a follow-up, even if you are not accepting them into the company. Like, you don't just ghost people after you've interviewed them, after they've taken time to interview with you. So the recruiter gets back to me with her response. And essentially, her response was feedback from Brad. Let me pull up that email, that exact email. So I have the email here on my phone. So she says, "Good afternoon. Brad didn't feel that you were the right position as you are not a pure digital PM and didn't have the technical experience that he's looking for in this role. He felt that your answers were overly general and basic. This is a role where you really had to showcase, as I mentioned on the phone, that you were a subject matter expert of sorts, as it's critical to the team's success. We have other roles on our website, blah, blah, blah. Feel free to look if there's anything, blah, blah, blah. I am sorry this didn't work out. Feel free to contact me if any other job postings pique your interest." What in the world? The thing that stuck out to me, that frustrated me the most about that email, is when she said, "My answers were overly general and basic." How dare you, Brad? How dare you? I was heated. When I read this, in fact, still reading this now boils me up. Now, you know, I had to fire off a freaking 4-page bestseller novel response back to these is. How dare Brad tell me that, oh, my responses were overly general when he didn't even interview me? As someone who should have had proper interviewing skills, he definitely sucked. I sent my response back to her, and this is what I said. Hello. Thanks for the update and providing Brad's feedback. I do have 4+ solid years of project management experience with consumer brands that are purely in the digital technology space. This also includes technical project management experience. I have managed project for enterprise level brands. I am not sure how this was lost in translation for Brad. I think when it comes to an interview, it goes both ways. This is not my first interview to be a PM, and I am not a novice in the PM world. Given the short turnaround requested for this role, I think some unrealistic expectations were set. Brad's interview style with me was quite generic and disengaged. He did not drive the interview as one would expect a senior director. You spoke so highly of him that I anticipated an intelligent, engaging interview and dialogue. However, I was left underwhelmed. Brad's questions were basic, and his responses to my questions were not very informative. I assumed it was because of the quick need to fill this position. Brad did not share what the technical elements of the role would be. He also did not have details of what the day-to-day projects entail. I remember asking him this, and he really didn't have anything to give me. Like I said, I just took it as, oh, they're just quickly trying to fill the role. Maybe he sees my experience and so he's good to go. But no, he was being a I am a subject matter expert in my field, but Brad had no subject in particular to discuss. He did not speak to any specific technical needs of the role. At this point, I want to know what you all are thinking. I want to know what you all are thinking about my response to Brad's feedback. Like, what in the world? What were you thinking, Brad? Are you watching this? Perhaps in the future, he could have specific questions that highlight the specific needs of the role. Anyone can spit out information just to see what sticks. It appears that is what he was looking for. The responses to my pre-screen questions, along with my resume, appeared to have been overlooked by Brad. Oh my gosh. Inhale, exhale. Do not let other people frustrate you, okay? You are amazing, you are great, and Brad is full of shit. The responses to my pre-screen questions, along with my resume, appears to have been overlooked by Brad. There was a lot of material there to help Brad navigate the interview and probe. At the end of the day, I wanted to jump in at a moment's notice to support the needs of the company, given the sense of urgency that was expressed to me. But I have learned it is not a fit for me. I am thankful to have found this out at this time. The recruiter lady ends up responding and actually sounded very, almost as if this is not the first time she has gotten this kind of feedback. Her response back from my email was essentially saying, hey, thank you for your feedback, that she's going to share, my feedback with the HR team. She wishes that there was somebody else on the Zoom call interview to also be a part of the interview so they could actually see how the interviews are going. She even mentioned how they have had internal discussions about what exactly is being asked of candidates during the interviews by hiring managers. She said, I believe that you are a solid candidate. And not having sat on that interview, she felt that it was just very unfortunate that she wasn't there. It was actually nice to hear her say that. I almost want to call that the worst interview I've had because I can't think of anything else that was that bad. And obviously since then, I've actually secured a few project manager jobs. So, Brad can go. These are some of the things that are going on out there with these project manager jobs. And it's important for us to do our due diligence as much as we can before we interview for these positions and also before we work for these companies. Maybe the red flag for me here was that they urgently needed a quick turnaround on a PM immediately. A lot of these project manager jobs, some of them require you to just in a moment's notice, hey, we're trying to fill this position. And it sounds great and all, but what is that really about? And what happened to the last project manager? If you like this video, please comment, subscribe, let me know your thoughts. Again, I'm Daisy Doll, and I will talk to you in my next video. Take care. Bye.
Say, 나를 봐봐 in my craze. 조금 더 망설이지 마. Alright. I don't want a best friend. 너도 나와 같은 맘. Yeah, waiting to get there. 나를 보며 웃어줘.